Hi, I'm Amey Zeigler, and I'm here to talk about character and elements of storytelling. Today, I wanted to start with character before we moved on to plot, because to me, character is the heart of storytelling. I want to talk about character before we get to plot, because character and the character journey is really the story that we come to see. The plot just happens to be the mechanism we have to get the character to go through their character journey to have that change. So let's talk about what makes a good character. There are several things that can help you create a good character. It's the same things that we like in a good friend, right? We want somebody who's likable. If they are good, if they are nice, if they are funny, if they are a person who rights wrongs, if they are loyal to their friends, if they are liked by their friends, all of these things are elements that you can do and put into those first couple of pages to create a likable character. For example, one of my favorite examples that they use, and now there's a book named after it, is Save the Cat. If your protagonist in the very beginning of your book saves a cat, they are immediately likable because saving a cat is a nice thing to do. It means that they are a good person. That means they like animals and they are altruistic and they think beyond themselves. So if you can find a way to make your character likable, you are going to go a long way to getting people inside your story and to want to go with them on their journey. Okay, so step number one, make them likable. The second thing that you can do is have your character be competent at something. These are kind of more like your hardened detective novel heroes, right? Usually they're not very likable. Sometimes they're funny, but they're kind of mean or hardened or bitter or jaded, but we like them because they're very good at their jobs. You can do a combination. You can have somebody who is both competent and likable, but you have to have one of those two things. Try to make them funny if you can, or at least laugh at themselves, not at other people. If you make them laugh at other people, that kind of goes into the, like, maybe they're a little mean. So what does your character need? First of all, let's talk about the types of characters that there are. There are the static or the flat characters that we enjoy in books like Sherlock Holmes or James Bond or those hard-boiled detective novels. Those characters really don't change from book to book. They have their reasons for being that way. They are jaded, they're going to continue on their story, and they don't really come to any great realizations about their character or their character flaws throughout the book. We are just going on them with a journey because what they're doing is so interesting and they're so competent at their jobs that we are drawn in. However, most stories that you're going to read in popular fiction and in literature are going to contain what I would consider a character growth character. Somebody who has a character arc within that story, something that they do to change, improve, and grow, come to a new truth or a realization, okay? Lots of different authors use different terms to talk about these things that your character needs and wants in order to get to this character growth. We're going to talk about a couple of them. I may do other videos on very specific ways to use these methods, but this is just kind of an overview of character. So the first thing, when you want to focus on character growth, you need to think about the spiritual question of your book, which will incorporate your theme and all these other things. And you're thinking, Amey Zeigler, I'm writing popular fiction. I don't need a theme to my book. I don't need character growth. And that's where you're wrong. Fiction has always been about moral tales. And even if it's about understanding a little bit more about the world around us and human nature, that is what fiction gives us, okay? Even popular fiction, even stories about romance and love, and even stories about going on adventures. There is always something that we can learn about human nature through these stories. For example, usually characters start out with some kind of lack. So in a rom-com, that's usually a relationship problem. She can't manage to have relationships, and so she struggles with finding true love. In a second chance romance, it might be trust issues. Maybe she's been hurt before and now she has to learn how to love and trust again. Either way, your character has to start out with a lack. Now, you don't want to be a Debbie Downer about the lack, like, oh no, look how my world is so horrible. But what you do want to say is that something is missing in this person's life. They are not whole or complete. And the promise is that by the end of this novel, the character will find out that missing piece that will make them whole. It doesn't always have to be a relationship. It can be something else. I write romances, so for me, it is a relationship. The next thing your character needs is a flaw or a need. Lots of different authors, they use a different name for this. Sometimes it's called a shard of glass, sometimes it's a flaw, sometimes it's a need. Whatever it is that there is something in their lives that they may not even be aware of that needs to be righted. And I like to point this out to them at the very beginning of the book, just to let them know that this is, let the reader know that this is what the story is going to be about. And you can point that out through a friend. It works better if it's not a friend. I could even use a billboard on the side of the road. Do you need X? This is what you need. And of course, your character is going to reject this because they're like, no, I'm fine, because change is hard and change is uncomfortable. Even good change is hard. This is going to be what's going to be corrected by the end of the story. There might be some wrong that needs to be righted, something in their past or their history that needs to be corrected, and some misview of how human nature works could also be corrected. Sometimes this is called an untruth that's going to be corrected by the end of this story. The next thing that we're going to talk about is limitations. Now, if your character is Superman, it's not going to be very interesting because Superman is basically, he has no problems, he has no flaws, he has unlimited powers, but that's not a very interesting character. We follow Superman around because of the things that he can do. It's almost like magic because he has these alien powers and it's just interesting to see him do those things. But what's really more interesting is watching people with limitations overcome those limitations and be able to work through them. So if those limitations actually keep them from achieving what they want. And so it's very interesting to see them overcome those. Those could be physical limitations, they could be economic limitations, they could be emotional limitations. People who don't know how to trust may not be able to trust as easily. Okay, the next thing that your character needs is a problem to solve. In the Hunger Games, we have a character Katniss, who has to put her name in a lottery, and all of a sudden the stakes get really high when her sister gets drawn. Now the problem that she needs to solve is she needs to go and volunteer for her sister, because if not, she can't protect her sister if she is in the Hunger Games. So Katniss volunteers in her sister's place, and now that opens up a whole nother category of problems to solve, right? They have to have something that they're working toward. I like to call this the external plot. This is what is going on external, outside of them, that they have to be constantly figuring, readjusting, making decisions and choices. If your protagonist is not actively making decisions, you might want to go back and think about the next thing that we're going to talk about, which is motivations. Why is your character doing what they're doing? In the case of Hunger Games, Katniss volunteered to go into the Hunger Games as tribute because she couldn't let her sister in there. Her sister is young, she's frail, and she couldn't bear the thought of her sister going in there because she knew it would be death, right? So why is your character doing what they are doing? And it has to be such a good reason that your character cannot walk away. At any point, they cannot walk away. A lot of times it's the detective chasing after the murderer who has killed his family, or something that is so personal to him that he literally cannot walk away and say, you know what, this is someone else's problems, I'm gonna let somebody else take this. It has to be a sticking point. Motivations need to be explained, they need to be clear, and they need to be deep. And if you do that, the reader will follow you anywhere. I will probably do a whole separate video just on motivations and how you can come up with believable motivations and books that you can read to help deepen your understanding of motivations. The motivation will also help the character have a personal connection to the plot. The plot is going to be like the gauntlet that the character goes through to learn this personal journey, this truth that they couldn't learn any other way. And hopefully by the end of this whole entire journey, they will realize that it was them that was keeping them from their happiness, their lack, their next step in their lives, and they can overcome their flaws and they can overcome the problem to solve all at the same time. And if you do that, it will be a satisfying ending. People will, readers will cry at your endings when they come to this victorious moments. They will root on your characters. They will just be so excited to read your book, and they will tell other people about your book. They'll be like, oh my gosh, I just read this amazing book and I want to share this with you. So that is our goal in creating these well-rounded, likable, competent, flawed characters with limitations and really strong motivations. So thank you. Check out my other videos, and I hope you found this helpful. If you did, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Let me know what other videos you would like to see me talk about or go into more detail. I'd love to share all the things that I have learned in my last 10 years of writing and reading books and watching videos about reading and writing, and I just want to share this with you. So thank you. Join me again on Elements of Storytelling.